I'm Ted. He's Andrew Knoll. Tell everybody, where are you from? What do you do?
Oh yeah, I write for the Los Angeles Daily News, the OC Register. I cover both the Kings and the Ducks for them. So happy to join you today,
Okay,
Ted.
so we got touching greatness to wrap up another hockey season, number 52, but who's counting for me? How do you assess, first of all, what we just did today with Ken Holland, the general manager? We just met with him for about a half hour. And what did we get?
Yeah, I mean, certainly he was generous with his time, but perhaps not so much with his information. He's in a very difficult position. He was brought in here to a build that was already basically in its dying embers, let's say, and not in the best position. And so now, with his advanced age, with Luc Robitaille's lengthy tenure, we're not looking at a situation where they can look to the future too much. However, the moment isn't exactly bright and shiny. So he's kind of towing a line between admitting failure and selling promise. And that's what we just heard for about 40 minutes.
Yeah, so the way I've characterized this team right now, for the last few years at least, is they're in that hamster on a wheel syndrome. Right. They're not going down, they're not going up, they're just sort of stuck in no man's land.
Yeah.
And how can they get out of that? In your mind, Mr. Assistant GM.
Well, they're in trouble if I'm in that position. But, I would disagree slightly with your assessment in the sense that they are going down. They're clearly going down.
Okay.
They were on an upward trend, I would say, through 2023 and potentially 2024. But they did try to kind of short circuit this rebuild, retooling, whatever you want to call it, bringing in older prospects, whether they were undrafted guys out of college or players that have been developed in their systems like Trevor Moore and Sean Dursey. And it seemed like they might be able to pull it off. But when they started consolidating assets, they made a number of missteps. They burned through quite a bit of talent. Subsequently, they made a coaching hire that turned out to be rather unpopular with the players. And lost players because of that. There's no question. I mean, this team went down 15 points in the standings.
Yep.
And even if you look at those two as outliers, they were in the high 90s, low hundreds prior to that. Now they're in the low 90s. As Ken Holland said today, you look at their performance on special teams, you look at their performance offensively, they weren't a playoff team. They made it because they had a diluted division. That's not going to be the case next year when you look at Anaheim solidifying itself, San Jose improving around Macklin Celebrini, on down the line. At the end of the day, this wasn't a team that won a lot of games, and you don't see them winning a ton next year either.
Yeah, and why would they be better next year? Who wants to come here and when you don't know what the immediate future looks like? And also from a goaltending standpoint, you got two guys that I guess that sort of works better than it used to. I mean, Look what's going on with a couple of teams, including Colorado, right? So how do you assess that?
Well, I mean, as far as who wants to come here, they did get Artemi Panarin to choose from a fairly broad group of suitors. Of course, and they got Adrian Kempe to resign, make an 8-year commitment. Of course, the flip side of that, the departure of Gavrikov, the departure of Roy, the departure of Spence, the departure of Fogle, the departure of Deneau, and maybe we'll keep Perry out of that mix. So kind of some give and take there, mostly give. But then, the goaltending situation, it's hard to say. I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of emblematic of the rest of their team. They're old in the prominent spots, and then they've got older guys behind those guys. I mean, This was the second oldest roster in the NHL this year. Typically, when you're at that stage, you've either just won something or you're trying really hard to win something now, and they're not in either of those positions. But long-term, their goaltending is in the best shape it's been in a long time. I mean, for years, they weren't investing draft capital. They weren't doing a whole lot in the undrafted market, and now they've got several good prospects. So it's how it lines up with their two mid-30s guys and their early 20s guys to, is there a gap there or not?
I always compare elite goaltenders to elite closers in baseball.
Yeah.
Okay? They're great for a certain amount of time, and then they hit a dip.
Right.
And that's just, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
You're not perfect, right? Except for a very couple of guys,
Sure.
Like in New York, or outside of that. So maybe because Kemper is coming off the best year he ever had the previous season,
right?
You figure it's not going to be as good as that.
Yeah.
Because he's not Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't shown that kind of consistency in his career. He's had had one really good year in Arizona.
Right, exactly.
3 years later, he wins the Stanley Cup in Colorado. 3 years after that, he's a Vezina finalist.
So 2 years from now, he should be great again.
Yeah, well, see, he'd be 38 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tough to be great at that age. But
you know what I'm saying, as far as your expectations can't be great every year if you don't have an elite goaltender.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, like you said, it is a lot like a closer. The mental side of it is really paramount. And so, yeah, we'll see what they end up with. Certainly defense and goaltending had been kind of the fulcrum of their success across 2 different regimes here. They have subtracted considerably from the defensive side.
Yes.
And in net, that they've asked a lot more of those guys as a result.
Okay, the other thing I was going to ask you, but we ran out of time, and you got 17 questions, and I got 1. I'm just screwing with him.
Only 4.
But anyway, team speed, okay?
Yeah.
I want to know how you think that fits where this team can potentially be. They brought up a couple of kids late in the season. I think that helped a lot there, but there are no finishers. They couldn't score, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, well, and the other issue they had all year was defensemen getting forwards the puck. They had no breakout game. They had a very weak transition game before their whole check for chances mentality, and that jargon that they used made a little bit of sense because they checked and they got chances off of it. Now it's just check to check some more. Check to fish pucks out of the defensive zone.
Right.
Check to get beat up along the wall. Check to get a line change.
Check, please.
Yeah, we didn't see the way the defense and offense fit together as we have in more successful seasons. And I think without some changes on the back end, speed being part of it, skill being another part of it, we're probably not going to see that.
Okay, but if you're the GM, do you try to get him a little quicker, a little faster? Besides, you're not going to get an elite scorer, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, you need,
and that's where I mean the hamster and the wheel syndrome.
Yeah.
Who's going to come here?
I mean, one thing with Panarin, they do have a guy who raises the offensive baseline in a way that they haven't had, really in a long time, probably since the 90s. I mean, so that is something. I'm not as concerned about their forward group from an offensive standpoint as I have been in recent years. I think they do have a fair amount on the wings, but getting production out of the center position is going to be very important.
Yep.
Right now, it's very questionable. And they really got very little offensively from 5 of their 6 defensemen.
Exactly.
Not just in terms of tangible production, but in terms of contribution to tangible production. So they need to get faster and more skilled on the back end. There's no question. They need more fluid skaters.
Right.
They need guys who can beat people one-on-one possibly. And they definitely need guys who can get the puck up ice and get it in the hands of scorers instead of making them drop back and be labored.
Yeah, and I'm never going to be a GM mind. But if I had to pretend that I was, I would try to add a couple of speedy guys that if you're not going to get great goal scorers, that can somehow take the spot of that and help overall and put you in good positions throughout different games. That's, you can't teach speed.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, obviously keeping up with the other teams.
Yeah, exactly. And how many of the elite speed too, right? Yeah. As far as the better teams.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Colorado, Utah, Anaheim, Edmonton. I mean, these are all fast teams. Yep. You're not just going to beat them slogging through it. So, yeah, I mean, they're in a position where they've already turned over a lot of the roster. When you really think about it, like Ken Holland today, alluding to prior playoff matchups, it's almost moot. I mean, when you go back into 2022, 2023, this is an entirely different team now. So they have to figure out how they want to remake it, how they want to reshape it, and how aggressively.
And Ken Holland's age is a factor to me because he's not going to be here for 10 more years.
Right.
Okay. So he said in the conference, it takes 8 to 10 years if you're going to rebuild totally and blow it up. So he's not going to do that. Otherwise, why would he be here? So now what do? That sticks you in a corner too. It's like, okay, well, I can only do so much. How much can he do? Realistically, do you think that they can at least be somewhat competitive and think, okay, if we get into the playoffs, we could do something?
I mean, it's a real challenge when you think about another big jump in the cap.
Yep.
When you look at the potential UFAs available, the market is going to be really thin, and especially thin in the areas where they need immediate help, which is center and defense. I can't look into a crystal ball, but when I look at some of the bigger names on the market, potentially right now, I see most of them resigning. Guys like Charlie Coyle in Columbus, who's also 34 years old, not exactly a long-term solution, but they're looking for stopgaps. He's a good one, but I see the Blue Jackets bringing him back. Alex Tuck in Buffalo, he's having such a good playoff that they might have to finally meet his number. You just look around the league, and there's not a lot of potential. And then you look at the trade assets. Wojtek Sijar's, his ascendance helped them a lot, especially having traded Greentree. Now they have one prospect chip that I think will have at least a high tier 2 value, let's say. They've got some good goalie prospects that they could potentially part with, but their value is really not that high typically in the trade market. They don't have a whole lot to trade. There's not going to be a whole lot in the FA market. So, Holland's an accomplished GM. He's going to have to squeeze every drop to turn this thing around.
You thought about possibly trading a Forsberg for somebody else, a forward that's going to help you?
And Anton Forsberg?
Yeah.
Where is his trade value?
Well,
really a journeyman backup.
Right, but he had a good run to maybe get the most out of whatever he could be worth. And teams need goalies.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, trying to sell high there, especially with some young guys behind him. But that's what you look at. You look at the assets,
package deal too,
that they might move.
Right.
They're all guys in their early to mid 30s with kind of limited value. In the case of their defensemen, pretty much across the board, at least some trade protection too. So there's a lot of limitations there.
Wow. Okay. Quick thought on the Ducks. You're covering the series, and I guess you're going to cover them all the way to the end, right? However long it goes. Talk about their team speed and how they've really turned out. I mean, they're a tough team to play against right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is strange. One of the things that Chris Knobloch, the coach of the Oilers, talked about after they were eliminated by the Ducks was that he was surprised at their compete level and their battle, in the walls, the corners, the net front. And that's something that really was not their calling card throughout the course of the season. They lost a lot of puck battles. They didn't have that physical grind. But you see some of the role players setting the tone, and some of the skill guys falling in line. Jeff Viel, Tim Washy, and
not household names either.
And Ryan Poehling were three guys that were really critical in this series, not just in their own contributions, but in the way they elevated the play of guys around them and set examples for guys around them. So you see, everybody's on board. They didn't have any passengers last night. That was by far the most complete game they played all year, if not the best game outright. So
how's that for an exit game, though, too, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean,
unbelievable when you think about it.
They did what the Kings couldn't do 4 years in a row and knock off Edmonton. I mean, Edmonton had some vulnerable elements this year, but they had some really vulnerable ones last year, too. So very impressive feat for them. And I think Quenneville, given the situation he was stepping into, his own not-so-savory recent history, the intensity of Greg Cronin, who was great on the player development side, but, they switched to get somebody in.
So you get them to a level, and then the other guy's supposed to come in and say, okay, I've won cups, let's do this.
And this is the time, because this is the playoffs. During the year, he was more hands-off. He was kind of letting guys find their own way, letting them make mistakes. But now he's, kind of pushing the buttons and moving the pieces. We saw that with Kreider coming up to the top line last night. That certainly paid off. And, he is pushing the right ones. So you look at management, coaching, down to the players, it's clicking. And it didn't look like it was in the last 10 games of the season. So they very effectively flipped a switch, and we'll see what they can do in round two against two teams that they beat during the season series.
Right.
Well, we'll see.
The last thing on the Ducks, their youth, too, seems to be coming of age at the right time. And, again, Cronin gets credit to get them to this point, or this past year. Right. And now, okay, Q, it's your buddy. It's your team now, guy.
Yeah, and I think guys have responded well. I mean, you look at Carlson, Gauthier, they're right on the cusp of being franchise-type players, and obviously they project as cornerstones. McTavish had a disappointing regular season. He's gotten better throughout the course of the playoffs and on down the line. And, of course, the biggest riser has been Jackson Lacombe. I mean, you looked at him. He was a timid player in his first year. He wasn't a guy who looked the part of an AHL defenseman. You think maybe he needed an AHL year between college and the pros. Oh, my God. I mean, he was the best player in the ice in that series. And you think about who was in that series, not just Gauthier and Carlson, but Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman, Evan Bouchard.
They're going against those guys on a regular basis.
But he was going against McDavid.
But did you see this much from Lacombe before, though? Did you think he had this in him?
Well, I mean, the first year was rough. It was really rough for
Yeah.
him, and you started to wonder, is his game going to translate? But year two, and then this season during the regular season, it took huge strides, became a lot more aggressive, a lot more committed to the defensive game. Offense was really his main attraction as a prospect. So, yeah, I mean, the signs were there, but the leap between year 1 and 2 was the really striking thing. Yeah.
And you got to have Dostal come through, and he has, right? I mean, is he pretty much what you want? Do you think they can be led by him the long haul?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think you could make a case for him as the best goalie in the division. Now, granted, some of the better teams in the division don't have good goalies.
Yes, that's true.
Vegas, Edmonton, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had a little bit of a down year over year in the regular season, but he didn't let it bother him. He came out of the slumps and played really well, and we saw that here. I mean, you go from getting pulled in Game 5 to turning in easily your best game of the series. He was rock solid last night.
So how far can they go in your mind? Is this it? One more round?
Well, I mean, it's going to be tough to see them beating, Minnesota or Colorado in a 7-game series, just because those are really formidable teams. But I think they've got a very good chance. And the
inconsistency of the team too, though, where I mean, not necessarily in this series, but certainly the last few games, they look like they were starting to put it together. But can you do it for the 7 games?
And I mean, it's not just the 7 games over the course of a playoff run. Champions build into it. They're getting stronger as they go along,
and their confidence too.
Yeah, I mean, to do that for between 16 and 28 games that it takes to win the cup. I mean, it's hard for any team, especially hard for a young team. But I think they have an excellent chance in the second round, regardless of their opponent. And then, from there, sometimes circumstance takes over. Guys get beat up on these runs. It's not they're not playing patty cake out there.
Yeah. He's Andrew Knoll. I used to be Ted. I appreciate the time. We're going to play a few minutes. I'll throw in certainly the Ken Holland interviews. And did you get anything out of him at all that you're going to take out and say, okay, I feel a little better about whatever it is? Or was it pretty much it's GM speak and you get what you get?
Yeah, I mean, largely status quo. I mean, I appreciated that he updated us on injuries and contract situations, but was there any illuminating philosophical or logistical discussion? Unfortunately, no, but perhaps another day.
Yeah, and how often does that happen anyway with any GM?
Right. If I'm involved in the conversation, never. So.
Exactly. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. As I sit here today, I'm not happy. I know Luke Robitaille's not happy. Our players aren't happy. It was a disappointing season. It was a disappointing season for our fans. Under 500 at home, 29th in the league in goals scored, squeaked into the playoffs, got swept up by a President's Trophy winning team. So I'm not happy. I just spent the last 3 days meeting with our players and exit interviews. I take it personally. Going to go forward here over the next couple of months. We've got to make the team better. We do have a lot of good pieces. I am proud of our guys that after the Olympic break, after we made the coaching change, I thought they really dug in. And they played hard to get us into a playoff series. I thought the first 3 games against Colorado were relatively even games. We lost 2-1, 2-1, 3-2 with an empty net. But at the end of the day, it's not good enough for our fans, and it was a disappointing season. What needs to happen here over the next couple of months as I look at our team? Like I said, we're 29th in the goals scored. We've got to score more goals. I think part of that will be solved by getting Fiala healthy, get him back in the lineup. Special teams were very poor. We were 28th in the league in power play. We were 30th in penalty killing. If you're that bad on special teams, it's hard to get in. So we have to improve special teams. On the defensive side of the puck, actually, we were third in the league in goals against 5-on-5. First was Colorado, second was Dallas, and third was us. So 5-on-5 defense was right up in the elite teams. We were seventh in the league in goals against overall, with a disappointing penalty kill. So I've got to look at obviously those things heading into the off season. made some moves last year that I thought would impact both of those areas with the addition of Corey Perry, with the addition of Joel Armia. But it didn't happen. And then I guess my last comment to you would be obviously on a coaching standpoint. DJ Smith is the interim coach. Been busy all this week, like I said, with exit interviews. Just wrapped up here with a couple players 5 minutes ago. Going to get at a search next week and take some time here to find. DJ is going to be a candidate. He's going to be a candidate to be the coach for 26-27. But certainly going to talk to a number of people, do a search, do some interviews, and make a decision on the next coach of the LA Kings. And then once I get the coach, we can then start talking. In that process, I can start talking about. Obviously, the coach is going to have a big influence on special teams and how we do things in the power play and the penalty.
Yeah, Ken. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions on the coaching front. As you're assembling a list of candidates, are you looking more at veterans or maybe young guys that are up and coming, or what are you looking for potentially in your next head coach?
Well, first off, I will say, DJ did a great job. The team, he coached 23 games. The team was 11-6-6 under his watch.
Right.
That's a .609 winning percentage. Over 82 games, there was only 8 teams in the league that had a better .609. So he did a great job. The team responded to him. So he's a candidate. I think all of the above. I think we gotta find some guys maybe with. I don't want to talk to 20 people. We're talking to Luke. I'm kind of formulating things. Like I said, I've been, we had Monday, Tuesday off. I talked a little bit, the coaches and everybody, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday have been all meetings from morning till night. So kind of got to get my head together here over the weekend and start. Been working on a list, but I'd like to talk to probably 5 to 8 people, and then make a decision. And some with experience, some maybe assistants, and maybe is there 1 or 2 guys that haven't been coached.
And I'm glad you mentioned DJ because, as you said, morale was up, overall performance was up, despite the absence of 3 forwards that were traded for picks, and Bialik, Kuzmenko scoring was up. What took so long to make the change, I guess? And in hindsight, do you wish you would have made it a little bit sooner? I guess why were you so hesitant seeing the same results from Jim for 3/4 of a season?
Obviously we talked about that the day that I made the decision. I think, when you're in the position that I am, you can't just every 25 games make another decision. I think you've got to give people, whether it's players, whether it's your coaches, you got to give them as long as you can. And when you get to the point where you believe you got to make a change, I think that I told you guys, I think going into the Olympic break, we lost the 2 games in Seattle and Vegas.
Right.
I thought we made the deal for Panarin, and I thought that give Jim the Olympic break, an opportunity to have a mini training camp.
Yeah.
And then when we lost to Vegas and they had their 5 best players out, we were up 2-1 going the 3rd.
Yeah.
And then the next night we got run over by Edmonton. I just felt at that point in time, to me, there was no real time prior to that I felt. I felt the team was digging in. They were trying hard. We were finding ways to lose games. We're up by a goal with 5 minutes to go against Tampa. They scored 2 goals late. We're up by a goal, 5 minutes to go against Edmonton. They scored 2 goals late. We were right there, but I think losing 4 in a row, 2 before the break, we had an opportunity through the break to have a mini training camp, and nothing had changed. I felt at that time it was time for change.
5 consecutive first-round exits.
Yeah.
What's the argument to keep the group together as opposed to making a major shakeup?
I think, I think we're one of only 6 teams in the league. I believe it's somebody told me yesterday. I think there's only 6 teams in the league that have made the playoffs 5 years in a row. You can fact check, but I'm going to spark that up because somebody told me so. But I believe it's pretty close to being true. So it's hard to make the playoffs. Teams gotten into the playoffs, and I think when you look at the 5 series, There was one Edmonton series, and I was on that side. It was a sweep, and then there was this series, but the other three were up for grabs, in my opinion. And now you got to find a way to get over the hurdle. So I think you got to keep at it. You got to keep at it. You got to keep at it. I guess I'm going to say this. You know, in 2015 or 16, I'm the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, and we made the playoffs 25 years in a row, and the team was, and then, you know, there was this push for a rebuild, and I said at that press conference, when you head into rebuild modes, it's 8 to 10 years to come out on the other side with no guarantees. I would say to you, we have lots of good players. I got to build a better team. You know, we got Kempe, we got Juice, we got Laffy's a real good player, QB, and we got to get Fiala back, and you know, Clark, but we've got to, you know, I got to build a better team. So I think there's lots of pieces here, and I speak to, again, there's 3 teams over this year that were from a point standpoint way ahead of the other 13. We got to continue to push and grind to make our team better, to make our team a little bit deeper, and to keep at it.
Ted?
Talked to several coaches throughout the years, always saying the Kings are a tough team to play against. And that was Jim Hiller's style a lot. And then you go the other way and open things up. So with a new coach, how do you want to do that, knowing that the playoffs are usually a tighter checking style, and opening it up doesn't always work that way unless you have really deep personnel. Also, the challenge of getting a big-time center to fill that void.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I would say, and somebody over here said, you know, we come out of the Olympic break, you don't have Kuzmenko, you don't have Armia, you don't have Fiala. I mean, we were kind of hoping or expecting that those guys would provide, you know, re-sign. So, you know, sometimes you got to play with what cards you're dealt. But I do know we got to score more. You can't go into next year and think we're going to be 29th in the league. I can't sit here and tell you that we're going to be 29th in goals for. We're going to have the 28th best penalty killing, 30th best penalty killing, 20th best power play, and we're going to be playing in the tournament. No chance. So, got to score more. You know, got to continue to defend. But are we going to defend, and it leads to more offense? But you still got to defend. That's got to be a part of. That has been a part of this DNA. I think that's, you know, that's how they won the Stanley Cups here, 12 and 14. You know, it's hard to play against, and when they won the Stanley Cup, I think they were the 8th seed one year. Right?
Yes.
And so it went on to win the Stanley Cup. So now it's 10 years later, but I think that I got to figure out that balance of what we got to do to create a little more offense, personnel wise. Talking to a coach, when I go through the coaching process, coaching search, find that balance that we're going to be a little bit on the attack, forecheck, but when it's time to defend, you got to defend.
So there you have it. Ken Holland talking about the future, whatever that means for the LA Kings. This season is over. It was fun covering it all, and hope I brought you a little bit of insight what's going on. And Andrew knows his stuff. Enjoy the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs, everybody.